Hi, everybody. Good to see you all this morning. I guess we kind of screwed up. We probably should have, Natalie, figured out how we should be sitting, because you're going to be looking at us and get confused. But hopefully you can figure out who's who based on our kind of visages here. So thank you so much for coming. As Chris said, it sounds like you had a good evening last night, but people are filtering in, so that's good. I don't know if you're excited about innovation or just need to get kicked out of your rooms because of checkout. But thank you all for being here. So we're going to be talking about innovation in the hospitality industry. I know that that's kind of an interesting topic because it's kind of hard to get into it, and there's certain Leanne and I were actually chatting about it earlier today. It's like kind of we haven't really seen these massive things, but we have a number of companies that have kind of come along. So before we get started, we probably should introduce ourselves. Lou Harasimu. I'm with Amadeus Hospitality. I lead the global connectivity team. And why don't we I'll let everybody kind of introduce themselves, and we'll talk a little bit about what their companies do. But once you introduce yourselves, why don't you tell us, what do you look at as an innovation that you thought would make it, but didn't? That kind of was released to the public, whether, it doesn't have to be travel, something else. I mean, for me, I was actually, I really thought that Google Glasses were kind of cool. That could be partly because I just watched a whole bunch of the Spider-Man movies over the weekend, and being able to knock people off with drones from my glasses would have been kind of cool. But I don't know if it really was strange to me that it didn't make it. But how about you guys, Leanne?
Good morning. I'm Leanne with Passenger One. VP Content Acquisition is a very funny title. I refer to myself as the junk drawer of our company. So anything that a corporate traveler says they need, they're like, ask Leanne, she'll go get it. So anything from hotel content to images to corporate policies kind of falls under my purview. Very good question. I don't think it's technology that has fallen completely by the wayside, but I think the thing that surprises me the most is how much we have not advanced personalization, not just in travel, but kind of across all verticals. And I think there's just tremendous room to grow there. Yeah. So that's kind of my big surprise, is I thought we'd be a lot further along today than we are.
Great.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Nadim, the co-founder CEO of Arise Travel, and I've been in hotel tech for the past 10 years, started in the cloud PMS space before moving into distribution with Arise. And to answer your question, you mentioned movies and Spider-Man, so not linked to travel. I remember that the last TV I bought, which was a long time ago, like 8 years ago, had this cool 3D features and with glasses, and I thought, oh, this is actually cool. It looked pretty good. So I thought this was actually going to pick up, but clearly there was no 3D content for TV, and I think we just skipped straight to VR and headsets. So, but at the time, I thought it was going to really scale and become potentially a thing, and clearly it didn't. So
yeah, that's great. Thank you. Donnie?
Hi, everyone. I'm Donnie. I'm at Uplift, and I focus on our hotel vertical. When I was thinking of this question, I really wanted to think of something outside of travel, but where my mind fixated on was actually Amazon travel. I spent 7 years at an OTA, so I remember when that news came out, I think we all kind of collectively shook in our boots, because they have millions upon millions of loyal users. They have what seems like unlimited resources to throw at the travel industry and make it work. But I think what underlies that is what we're talking about today, which is why innovation is a little bit slower on the hotel side. It's a complex space. From the payments, the PMS, the CRS, and it's proof that you can't take a retail model and just slap it on top of hotels to make it work. And I think it kind of helps me, understand and describe why companies like Uplift exist, which is a buy now, pay later solution specifically designed for travel and hospitality. We work with over 200 travel brands like United Airlines, Southwest, Carnival Cruise. Vail Resorts just launched with us 2 months ago. And we really look at understanding what are the underpinnings of the travel space to make this buy now, pay later solution work, from the CRS to the PMS, and really customizing solutions for our partners that work for them.
Great. Well, thanks for the the information and leading it into what Uplift does, and I think it's actually would be great to have you guys go through it. I know we have a couple of slides. We figured out some visuals would help. If you guys can throw those up there. There we go. So, Leanne, why don't you kind of give us an update about?
So, Passenger One is an online corporate online booking tool, and I don't think prior to joining Passenger One I would have put innovate and corporate booking tool in the same sentence. It's kind of mechanical. It's kind of tactical. So what we do is we marry all of the content. So the corporate policies, things like per diem and duty of care, with the supplier content, not just on the hotel side, but also flight, rental car, kind of anything that a corporate traveler would need in their day-to-day business. And then also the booking tool itself. So I mentioned personalization, and I think that's where the innovation comes in for Passenger One, is on the back end, we personalize it not just for the travel buyer, but also for the suppliers. So hoteliers have this really rich, robust marketplace on the back end for comp share analysis, market share analysis, how to reach out to travel buyers. So it's a little bit of a lead gen for the corporate travel team. So I think in that sense, I mean, the corporate booking tools are pretty standardized, but I think it's some of our back end tools where we innovate.
Great, thanks. Nadeem, so I know that, kind of, I'll let you kind of talk about it, but one of the interesting things, well, I'll let you kind of talk and then I'll ask my question. I'm very excited to kind of get on this panel and talk about these things, so I don't want to talk over you guys. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, because we were also chatting, before about, I think you've had other blockchain initiatives in the past over the years at Head Now. I think a lot of those were very crypto focused or around tokens and stuff, which again doesn't fit, I believe, with how hotel operates today. Neither does it fix any of your immediate problems, I believe. So, instead we are focusing on what's really needed, and we do use distributed ledger technology to allow hotels to share real-time data and all their, specific pricing and business rules directly with their partners in a trusted, controlled, scalable way. And so this distributed model, really it's a distributed database for multiple organizations to share data and information between themselves without having any service or organization actually sitting in between them to do so. So it solves all the technical limitations that you have today on how hotels want to collaborate with their partners. Also solves all the scalability and query limitations that PMS or CRS have, while fixing all the caching issue, data quality, lack of transparency, and so on. And so it's a new data sharing model that really allows hotels to fully own their distribution directly from their PMS or CRS. And it's exciting because, of course, it's going to help boost the hotel's revenue, but also now put them in a position to work with their partners in ways where they can really get into improving the traveler experience, push new personalization, monetization capabilities that are just impossible on today's infrastructure, and overall streamline the way they work together. So we've been at it for 3-4 years and about to launch with some players. Some might be here, and so we're excited. Yeah.
Great, thanks. I know, Don, you can kind of give a little bit of an update. Is there anything else you want to kind of throw in?
Yeah, I heard Buy Now, Pay Later mentioned a couple times during the conference. And so for those who aren't really familiar with it, it's quite simple what we do. We essentially empower travelers to be able to book their favorite travel brands directly on their site, but be able to spread the cost of their trip over time in monthly installments. And I think what's also really interesting for this audience with a distribution lens is that almost every partnership we roll out after the integration, it's not just a payment option, it's actually a really effective marketing tool. Buy Now, Pay Later is a great way to acquire new customers, increase conversion, move more eyeballs down the funnel, and of course increase average order values.
Yeah. So we've obviously seen stuff like this in retail and everything else. I mean, why do you think it's never really hit it within hospitality? I mean,
definitely the complexity on the payment side. So Gianna on the working group on Monday, I think said it best. Travel versus retail is really 2 transactions, not one, because there's the booking and then there's actually the processing of payment. So when you look at it through that lens, including not even adding in just multiple rate types, prepaid, postpaid, deposit rules, it can become extremely messy on the back end to integrate. So this space really, really requires custom solutions instead of a one-size-fits-all approach for hotels.
Right. Anyway, payments obviously is kind of a challenge across all your sites. I mean, right? I mean, you've got even from the blockchain, holding the distributed ledger, all of that stuff, and then obviously corporate booking tools. I mean, is that is kind of payments an issue that you guys have to worry about as well? I mean, from that perspective.
I mean, there's so many different payment flows. It's not like one simple way of doing things, depending on if it's prepaid, not prepaid, with VCC, not VCC. There's a bunch of different flows, and so I think the issue today comes with the data fragmentation that happens across a bunch of different systems and the lack of, again, accurate information sometimes that makes it through these chains or different systems back to the hotel. So it's hard to sometimes rely on front desk agents to always know exactly what to do depending on the scenarios. And so I think us as company and technology provider need to make it easier and streamline this whole experience when it comes to payments. So, and working on it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, so we're obviously talking about innovation, and I think as I hinted at, I don't know if innovations. There hasn't been much innovation, I think, in the hotel space. I mean, yeah, there's been some blips here and there, but I feel like it's we're kind of a slow-moving beast, right? I mean, why do you guys think that is? I mean, I don't know, Nadeem, if you have any thoughts on it, and I mean, what's kind of holding hospitality back? I mean, blockchain being a perfect example where it's
Right in the hot seat.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a combination of two things. One, hotels weren't really given a chance to really innovate because they are kind of stuck on an infrastructure that limits what they actually can do with their partners. So, I mean, of course, bias here because that's what we're working on. But really, if you look at it and you talk to hoteliers or point of sale partners, if it's TMCs, OTAs, or whatnot, it's very hard for them to really push new stuff because they're kind of like limited to how things currently work between themselves. So that's one. And then you, I think, have this, risk-averse type of mentality. A lot of people, it's the fear of the unknown. Like, people have been in the industry long enough that they are familiar with how things have been working for the past, whatever now, I guess 20 years at this point, that for them it's really hard to just even think and challenge themselves. Like, it's always, you play it safe and you just keep doing it, bring minor improvements, but like if you really want to take a big leap forward, you need to kind of like, I think, challenge yourself. And again, this does go towards specific people, but like some are more like, okay, I'm going to wait and see, whereas others actually do take the time and effort to look forward and look beyond the next like 3 months KPIs or 6 months KPIs. So that's kind of has been the challenge, is like you need to identify and work closely with these partners initially. And I think, so that's what we see from startups. Like, that's kind of like the challenge.
Yeah. I mean, how can we do that? I mean, Leanne, Donnie, I mean, how do you feel like we can kind of push and get those people more engaged and involved?
So you and I just talked about this. I think the airlines are, they have obviously the same challenges that we have as far as like the backbone is very much a legacy system. But over the past few years, we've seen such great strides, as you and I were just speaking about, with NDC, new distribution capabilities on the air side. So rather than try to reinvent the wheel and kind of jam these new technologies into the legacy systems, for lack of a better word, the airlines have done a fairly good job. Also, words I've never thought I would say, that the airlines are actually coming around technologically, but they've had parallel streams.
Yeah.
So rather than try to jam all of these new capabilities into the existing infrastructure, the NDC, the new distribution capabilities are just kind of going on a parallel track. And I mean, personally, I do feel as though there's a lot more for me to take advantage of, in the United app or even in an OTA flight app today than there were 5 years ago. And I think hotels would be very well served to maybe consider that path, as opposed to trying to correct the existing infrastructure. Maybe there's a parallel path and taking advantage of some of the amazing new technologies that we've seen this week.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, Hedna, we're all here kind of having these conversations. I mean, Donnie, you're a future leader, right? I mean, is there anything that, from within Hedna that we can drive and kind of get that innovation that the flight industry seems to be having?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely the working groups, because the reason why I find so much value in Hedna and have been coming back year after year is because you get all the same minds or all different minds from different areas of the vertical in the same room. So for me, that's really useful because I can talk to a CRS partner, work through an issue with a payment gateway, literally pull them into the conversation, and then grab a hotelier on the other side to then say, hey, can we get feedback on what we're thinking to implement? So it's very rare for me to be able to get all three of those separate parties on a call or track them down, and Hedna kind of forces those interactions, and I think is why, obviously it's been designed and been so successful over the years.
Yeah, okay. Okay. I mean, is there anything that we can kind of, I mean, what recommendations do you guys have? I mean, we kind of talked about trying to drive, but I mean, is there anything specific that you guys think that we should kind of push? I mean, the working groups and, from that perspective. I mean, like, let me kind of phrase it a little bit differently. Like, what advice would you give to startups in the hospitality space, right? How would you get them engaged, involved? How would, we kind of get the hotels working with them?
Starting with me, I guess, for hotels, my advice would be, over the years, I've noticed that hotels are probably the most risk-averse industry in terms of taking, new leaps. But startups, on the other hand, have the highest appetite for risk. So I think both parties kind of need to meet each other a little bit halfway. and be willing to iterate, be willing to pilot, and for startups specifically to be patient as well and to be persistent because hotels have a lot going on. You guys need to take care of the guests. You need to make sure you have the right front desk staff. You need to make sure you're distributing your rooms. And startups just want to iterate and go, 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 go. And so I think each side needs to realize where the other is coming from and be a little bit more patient and persistent.
Yeah, to add to that, I think startups need to understand better where the hotels are coming from and how they operate. I think I've seen many startups, and that included myself at the beginning, where you want to push a solution, you have your vision, but again, the hotels are here, you're selling them something that is here. What's the path, right? And so I think startups have to do a better job at, again, really understanding their way of operating and have a clear path on how you can eventually reach your vision with your partners. But I think there is often this lack of complete understanding of actually how hotels really operate in whatever department you're selling to. Because as you said, you're just excited about pushing, growth. But again, understand who your customers are and where they're at today to bring them to the future.
And for me, it's about stakeholders. For Passenger One, the value that we bring is it starts with obviously distribution and connectivity, but we have value for the loyalty teams, the marketing teams, the sales teams. So for me to do a real comprehensive pitch or an end-to-end solution selling is sometimes requires 4 or 5 teams. That is impossible to get into one room at the same time. So it's persistence, which you both have alluded to, and knowing your audience. I know that I need to get all of these stakeholders in line and in agreement and in alignment that yes, this is a very good solution. And so we'd like to move forward, and that takes a long time. It's not an overnight sale, and it's certainly not an overnight implementation. But for the hoteliers, I think I would advise you all to take the call. There's a lot of really, really great new innovation that I've seen over the past couple of days, and everyone's really busy right now, but there are some really, really great solutions coming out of the market and out of things like Hedna, and have an open mind, take the call, everyone, make a goal that once a week or twice a week you will make a concerted effort to have a conversation with some of these emerging technologies and really listen, have an open mind.
Yeah, well, to your point kind of getting all these teams together, I think certainly when I was at IHG, I saw that, and we had so many different departments, and I mean, you need to with a corporation at large. Every team did its own thing, and I think what may be beneficial is get a champion within the organization, right? Getting one person to drive it. Yeah, it's difficult for you to bring that loyalty team in, to bring in the distribution team in, to bring in the payments team, whomever it is, but finding one person within that can drive it, saying, you know what, make that call, make that pitch. You kind of have that this will be a great. Implementation innovation for my company, have them drive it within, jointly do that. I think that's a great way to move forward. So I just want to make sure you guys know that we don't want to leave you guys out there. I know it's probably early in the morning. You guys are still recovering, but if you guys have any questions, I don't know if we have anybody's put any in. If happy to answer them as well. We've got our own list of conversations that we're happy to go through, but want to make sure you guys are engaged as well. So through the app, you can ask your questions. Cool. So we talked about, I think on the GDS panel, there was little conversations about bleisure, and I thought it'd kind of be interesting to kind of, I think, especially over the last few years, we've seen a lot of changes, challenges. I think everybody's talked about COVID enough that we don't need to talk about it anymore. But obviously that drove a lot of things, right? Especially the need, to work at home and kind of work at home. What does home mean anymore? Home could be, in your house. Home could be in the Azores, right? I mean, depending on how that works, and then that overlap that kind of came with it. So, when we kind of look at that, I mean, do you see an overlap here for kind of like booking tools, right? I guess almost a combination, right? Between kind of what Uplift is doing and you guys are doing, where to kind of drive that. Okay, I'm going to go on a business trip, right? So I'm kind of come here and then stay a few extra days. That maybe you kind of combine all the pieces together in a kind of larger solution.
So I'll start with that one, and it's a really deep and complex and layered answer, which actually I don't even know the answer yet. So we're having conversations with some of major travel corporations, and it's where does travel now live, and what is corporate travel? So we're hearing things with all of the recent rounds of earning calls, Airbnb being the most relevant probably to this room, saying work from anywhere, we will go to 100% distributed workforce, and we'll have these like kind of small group gatherings. So what does that mean for everybody in this room? I think it means we've got, and I would love to turn this over to you just anecdotally about your experience coming to Atlanta, but we've got employees who are home and then might just go, I'm gonna go work from Barcelona for a month. Okay, great, and companies are encouraging that, but where does that live? Does that duty of care fall under the corporate travel team? Is it corporate travel? And so these are very difficult conversations and confusing conversations, and they're all being had. But I think you have the perfect anecdote for.
Yeah, we were chatting about this last week, and it was kind of funny. I was like, oh no, I'm a stereotypical millennial. But I had always come to Atlanta for work. I never came to like actually explore the city, and I just had a friend move here, so I was like, perfect, I'll fly in Friday, make up the time on the time zone difference, and actually explore the city and then stay for Hedna. And then we got to talking about like, well, where did you book over the weekend? And I'm like, well, no offense, I want to check out a boutique hotel. Like, I want to see something really cool. And we were like, well, what if Marriott would have offered you the conference rate so that you could have booked earlier in the weekend and actually gotten a discount? I'm like, well, then maybe I would have stayed at Marriott, right? And then I was like, well, if that was the case, and I was a leisure traveler with student loans coming due again in the fall, it would be nice if I had a BNPL option on Marriott's site. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here, and hotels need to understand that you have an audience that is potentially willing to extend their stay. And how are you targeting that consumer from a business traveler to then a leisure stay?
Right. And I think the other important point that we're kind of trying to suss out now with some of our partners is travel and culture, right? So everybody in this room probably will have a much elevated stake in company culture. And I mean like the companies who are traveling to our properties and to our hotels, because if we have completely distributed workforces, it's going to be engagements like Hedna, like this room, that are really the only opportunity to reinforce company culture. So I think there's going to be this kind of melding of corporate travel, human resources, culture, and people teams will all now become important stakeholders in the world of travel for corporations. And it'll be interesting to see how all of this unfolds over the next, kind of 6 months, 12 months, 18 months.
Yeah.
Well, I guess from the approach of trying to encourage that type of behavior. I mean, I know that, and I was actually chatting with a former colleague of mine at IHG. But you have the challenge of corporate booking rights, right? So as a traveler, is there an opportunity to, I don't want to obviously set policy, but is there an opportunity from the business side and from the hotel side to say, what, let my employees use my corporate rate to travel not on business, but on leisure as well, right? Again, drives more business to the hotels, potentially a lower rate, but what, this is potentially a customer that could be going to an Airbnb or something else. I mean, do you see something like that helping, changing?
Absolutely. And there are so many emerging booking tools and technologies now that's really just a checkbox, right?
Yeah.
So is this available for leisure, and then a drop down, is this a business trip or a leisure trip? And just having hoteliers extend those corporate rates, that's a simple process and an easy fix and an immediate solution. It doesn't require a lot of code and complication. But yeah, I think that's a trend to watch. And also, to your point, an opportunity for incremental business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to add that I think, honestly, this whole work from anywhere era that we were kind of moving towards is going to allow hotels to have great revenue management, pricing opportunities in terms of how they want to attract people and cross, I think, promote within different even services or chains among their brands. Because to your point, if I stay 3 nights for business and I want to extend, maybe even other hotels then should be made aware of my travel plans, and then maybe not bid, but kind of have specific pricing that are tailored for my trip. They know that I've been coming for business extending for that specific, whatever reason stuff. So the more information and transparency there is, I think, between the point of sale and the hotels is going to allow those much stronger, again, personalization and pricing that is really tailored to a specific trip and the type of traveler. And I think this is going to become even more prominent now that this whole bleisure era. So I know this is kind of new, so I don't think hotels have this figured out yet.
Yeah.
But I would expect that they should figure it out in the next 6, 12 plus months. And hopefully, they'll also have technology and partners that is going to help enable all of that for them.
Yeah. I mean, do you see that's one of those things that will continue? I mean, from all 3 of you guys. I mean, is that something that you feel that is it going to be the Google Glasses or the 3D TV of the world, or is it going to be something that, everybody's encouraging and saying, hey, this is great, I'm actually enjoying my job because I can extend it and do something fun afterwards?
I think it's here to stay, and you just follow what the big corporations are starting to do. If you force people now to go back 5 days a week at their office, like, you're going to lose most of the talents, right? So I doubt that going full remote, I'm not certain this is here to stay for all companies, because I don't think it works for everyone, but this hybrid model where people have way more flexibility and will be on the go much more, I think it's 100% happening and will remain.
Agreed. And this week, we just had a really interesting round of earning calls, but Glenn Fogel from the Priceline Group came out and said alternative accommodations by 2030 will be $112 billion. So those are Airbnb and lodging, houses, apartments, flats, types of accommodations. So I think for the hoteliers in the room, that's something to really keep an eye on, because that shift is coming from somewhere, right? So, are we going to start to see a little bit of a shift from traditional hotel rooms, more of a shift in the business corporate? It isn't a thing just yet. We're not, because of duty of care, alternative accommodations really aren't a trend that we're seeing, but it is starting to uptick a little bit. And so, yeah, I think all of that kind of converges to this work from anywhere, kind of distributed workforce, and all of these trends that we're talking about up here. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I think when you have an industry leader like Airbnb coming out and setting the stake in the ground and saying, hey, we are work remote now forever, I think only more dominoes are going to fall, because that's what people are going to demand.
Yeah.
And in terms of leisure travel, I'm a pretty extroverted person, so I thrive off of people interactions. My work from home environment is not very energizing. So, for example, a trip like this, I want to extend my stay. I want to be on the road. Uplift gives us WeWork access. I can take meetings from wherever. So I think that especially millennials and Gen Z are going to embrace that, and it's a testament to also what Airbnb is seeing with digital nomads. Not even renting, just going from one place 1 month to another.
Yeah.
Well, and I also think the recent few years, I forget, there was someone in the room, we were talking about it the other night, and we had a laugh, because a couple years, I've worked from home for about 15 years, and a couple years ago, I would live in fear of the Amazon guy ringing my doorbell while I was on a Zoom call, right? I'd be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Now you've got cats, babies, dogs, and so this has all become kind of normalized. So, you mentioned WeWork or a Starbucks, which is chaotic, but now you realistically could take a call, a Zoom call, a video call in this kind of shared workspace with people and all kinds of activity behind you, because we become so accustomed to it.
Right. Makes perfect sense, yeah. All right, well, let's go to reader questions. So first one, I think, is Nadeem. So much of distribution relies on caching. Do you think that will continue? Is blockchain the answer? Well, I guess I can start with you, and you other guys can start too.
I mean, obviously a biased answer, because that's exactly what we're solving. So indeed, this cache-based model is, there's a reason why it existed and why things have been working this way up until now. But it is causing a bunch of problems, indeed. And so blockchain is a mean to solve these problems. So it's not like if blockchain is the solution, it just happens to be the ideal solution to fix these caching and data fragmentation problems. So absolutely, yes, would be the answer.
Well, so one of the things that I know that looking at blockchain in the past, especially working on a hotel, is the onward distribution, right? So to be able to, I provide my rates to a particular OTA, and then it ends up someplace it shouldn't. Do you think blockchain? Kind of my understanding was that blockchain would be able to at least identify the path, right?
It gives the control. It sounds cheesy, but it gives the control back to the hotels instead of trusting or relying any type of service or organization in between to transmit their data properly. So here it creates that shared database that basically they have full control and can enforce all the business logic and rules directly with their point of sale partner. So that's we believe the only way for hotels to really actually own and control their distribution the right way.
You guys want to weigh in on blockchain or distribution?
Want to get into the blockchain rabbit hole?
I'm not going to pretend like I eloquently answer that.
I'm okay,
I'll go
thanks.
with what
So we'll move on to the next one. I think actually all three of you would have a good, interesting answer to. What is one emerging channel that you think will be successful and one that will disappear? So I'll start with you, because you mentioned the Amazon travel.
Yeah, One thing I'm surprised that never caught on, but I think maybe might catch on a little bit more now with leisure travel happening, is the concept, I think it was like day use or
what?
hotel by day.
Yes, day use.
Because, like, for example, I have a flight out at 8 p.m. tonight, but now my bag is checked and I don't want to fly 5 hours in a suit.
Yep.
So do I have to go change in the bathroom? Like, it would be nice to have a place to work from, for example, for the afternoon, book a few hours. So I would be actually really interested to see if that's a space that would grow.
Yeah, well, I think that's actually an interesting thing. Is there's I think the problem with the day use is because of some of the seedier parts of it.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's been part of the reason. Well, there's also the technology component, which we won't
I was at
get
Hotel
into,
Tonight for 7 years, so I know. But I mean,
can we overcome that? I guess that's the question.
Exactly. But I think perspectives are going to change because of the use cases of leisure and how people are traveling and what they may need a hotel for throughout the week.
But if that was to really increase and pick up, a lot of the actual front desk operations and PMS, like managing things by the hour, many systems are not really set up for that.
Yeah.
I mean, they should, but again, right now.
I mean, that's the difficulty, right? I know from a CRS side and a PMS side, it's we have a one-night stay. I mean, that's kind of there's workarounds and everything else, but it really requires the full breadth of the technology to change to be able to support that, which again is back to that innovation and slow movingness. Do you have any?
So I don't know about kind of emerging success and kind of a sunsetting of a channel, but I think possibly a melding of channels, right? So I know Gianna is a pretty big proponent of, why do we have these corporate rate buckets? Shouldn't it just be, a negotiated rate because of a relationship at a percentage off, say a BAR rate? So I think we might start to see some of these channels coming together in conjunction with more sophisticated revenue management, and maybe we won't be so siloed.
Yeah.
Right, so I don't know if it's really a sunsetting, but I think some of those channels might kind of come together and blend, and we might have a little bit of a streamlining of these kind of revenue buckets that we all talk so much about.
Emerging channel or one that's just.
I mean, it's not really. Those are already known entities, but I'm curious to see how the super app model that works pretty well in Asia is going to translate into the Western world. I know like Hopper is a big believer in this. Like Uber is getting into it, and. Yeah, like I don't have the answer, but I'm going to be very curious to follow how this plays out over the next few years, because this typically doesn't really fit with how we here, I think in America, Europeans are used to traveling. But again, there's a lot of success to be taken from what's happening in Asia that I'm actually curious to see how this plays out. So. That's what
Okay. So we have 48 seconds, and I think actually this is a really good question. I want to get at least one answer on is how can hotels cater more effectively to Gen Zs? I don't know who's closest. I'm certainly way on the other end.
Well,
Thank you for teeing that up. I would say, 81% of 22 to 44-year-olds have used a buy now, pay later service. They are expecting this as a payment option. They're credit risk averse. So really, this is coming to hotels. I would say that's probably the biggest answer for me that I would give.
Yeah, convenience. Make sure all your tech solutions actually work, because there is nothing worse than being frustrated by pretending to have like modern tech solutions, but actually half of them doesn't work properly. So 100% you're going to lose them. So yeah, just make sure you're up to date with tech stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Awesome.
Updated tech is really important to the emerging.
I would agree as well.
I mean, if a hotel room
As a
doesn't
Gen
have,
Zer, I would agree that even it works on the other, like all the way across.
I mean,
So-
what do you mean you don't have a smart TV in your hotel room? That I actually heard that. Yeah. So.
Well, I still have, I know we're over time, but going into the hotels that still have the iPhone 4 connection, and what I understand, I mean, it's a lot of money to be putting out, but everything going to USB makes so much more sense. Anyway, thank you so much for your time. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and we'll be around if you ask any questions. So thanks so much.
Thank you.